All right, Shalom. This is Har1 by Yasser Allah of the GMS Lionz Den Camp. I want to say Kal Halayim, La Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Harakah Kodash Ma'amah. Double honor to the elder apostles of GMS and their elders. And Shalom to you, Akim, and Agwatim and children that believe in sincerity and truth around the four corners of the earth. I want to go into this topic dealing with the demise of the dollar. You have here, it says what? The time has come for Russia to finally ditch the U.S. dollar. All right, foreign ministry. Now, that's why the scriptures say, hasten the day, and though it tarry, wait for it, for it shall surely come. And that's what's coming, man. The prophecies are coming to pass. The Medes, which is Russia today, are being stirred up to rain down upon America and strip her America bare, just like the European Union is doing, putting sanctions on America. All these nations are going to put sanctions on America real soon, like a united front. Now it says Russia will definitely respond to Washington's latest sanctions. And sanctions are an act of war. All right, and in particular, it is accelerating efforts to abandon the American currency in trade transactions, said Deputy Foreign Minister, right, Sergei Ryabkov. Now, he said, what, they are accelerating it. And even Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai said, what, he's going to shorten the time for his elect's sake. All right, make a speedy riddance of this place called Babylon. The time has come when we need to go from words to action. So this is it, man. And get rid of the dollar as a means of mutual settlements and look for other alternatives, he said in an interview with International Affairs. All right. So what are they doing? They're looking for different derivatives, which is derivatives are different systems that are set in place to back up your currency. And now the dollar was set in place to back up the ruble, the oil, gold, everything, man. That's what they created the dollar for. Now, let me read this real quick. It says, thank God this is happening and we will speed up this work, right? Make a speedy riddance. Ryabkov said, explaining the move would come in addition to other retaliatory measures as a response to a growing list of U.S. sanctions. Russian Energy Minister Novak recently noted that a growing number of countries are interested in replacing the dollar as a medium in global oil trades and other transactions. There is a common understanding that we need to move toward the use of national currencies in our settlements. There is a need for this, as well as the wish of the parties. According to the minister, it concerns both Turkey and Iran. All right, so now Turkey, America has finally lost Turkey, Togomar to Russia, right? And that plays out Ezekiel 38. But now I want to get a scripture. This is Isaiah 13:17. It says, behold, I will stir up the Medes against them. The Medes represent Russia today, right? Which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. So America's not going to be able to pay Russia off. They're not going to be able to make any deals, draw back the sanctions or nothing. That's what the Lord is setting up to bring to pass his prophecies. And he said the king's heart is in the hand of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. He turned it whithersoever he wants. So the Lord is allowing them to making them come up with these plans for their own demise. All right, right here it says basically the Russians, they're not going to regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. This is what silver is. All right, we know silver is like shakal, but that's not what it says right here. It says kakha, which means silver or money. So they're not going to deal with any money. All right, monetary forms of payment. They're not going to deal with the dollar. There's not going to be any way America is going to be able to pay off these nations. They're not going to be able to pay them off with the dollar, because the dollar is an actual hindrance to them, hindrance to these other nations. They don't want it anymore, right? Now it says what? Silver or money. So they're not going to delight in silver, in the money, the dollar, or gold. Let's see what gold is. Now gold is what? A derivative for oil, because it's interchangeable. They replaced the gold standard and they put the oil and dollar standard in place. So when you say gold, you're looking at oil. They say they struck gold, right? When somebody strikes oil, they say they struck gold. It says zahab, gold, something gold colored as oil, a clear sky, man. So it's talking about the oil, man, right? Petroleum and all that, yellow. So it's talking about the oil. So he said they're not going to regard what? It said brilliance and splendor. It says the Medes against them, which shall not regard money, and as for oil, they shall not delight in it. All right, because before 1971 to 1975, before all of that, before those years, you had something set up called the Bretton Woods Agreement. And the Bretton Woods Agreement was a system that was in place for all these foreign nations to do deals with each other, basically setting their currency as a standard to gold, with the gold standard, backing it by gold, right? Meaning $1 for 1 bar of gold, $2 for 2 bars, $1, 1 bar of gold every time, and one currency, 1 bar of gold. See, when America did that in the 1970s, before that, America couldn't pay, people like Russia, all these other nations, Italy. All right, they all wanted their gold back. Put it like that. When after the war broke out, I think it was World War II, they saw all the weapons that America was using, and they were saying, "Hey, man, y'all was buying a lot of guns and weaponry over there, over there in the war in Italy. What was that? Vietnam, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, if I'm wrong on the war, I think it was Vietnam. And Italy was saying, "Hey, y'all brought a lot of arms, man. Where y'all get this money from? Is y'all creating dollars? If y'all creating dollars, that's wrong, because y'all gonna devalue our currency. I only gave you enough gold to set up certain amount of dollars. If y'all create more dollars, then y'all not gonna have the gold to pay the people, and you're gonna round up paying them with my gold. So you know what? I want my gold back." That's what Italy said. Then Russia said it. All these nations said it. That's when you get Nixon came into place. All right, when Nixon, 1971, he did away with the gold standard, as a de facto. He said, "Hey, man, y'all trying to collapse America, which is an act of war. So if all them people pull away from the dollar, it's going to collapse America." So what did they do? Nixon did away with the gold standard, basically robbing all these nations of their money, of their gold, robbing Russia of their gold, and China, all these nations, man, robbed them of their gold and set up a new standard, where the dollar became the world currency through the OPEC nations, which is the oil producing exported oil petroleum exporting nations, basically. Now, all right, so after he set that up with them, with OPEC, that's when the dollar became the world standard as the currency, which helped them begin their new world order, which pulled away from the Bretton Woods Agreement, which everything was based on gold, which they moved to oil and the US dollar, which is a fiat currency, floating currency, truly backed by nothing, truly backed by no measurements of gold or any standard, just backed by their law, by de facto. And now everybody pulling away from that, all right, today. So So they're saying they're not going to regard any dollars anymore. Now they got their own currency. They're looking for different derivatives, which are systems to be able to back their currency. You know, Russia has the ruble. Turkey has oil and their currencies and gold and rubies. Yeah, you know, you got China with the yen, which is the top currency right now. And Venezuela switching over to cryptocurrency, backing it by oil. So they all doing away with the dollar, which is going to collapse America completely, as they did as they was about to do in 1970s before the OPEC nations submitted under the guise of Saudi Arabia. You know, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Venezuela, all these countries, they helped begin the OPEC system in the 1930s and 1960s. Actually, 1960s, you know. All right, so I'm going to read. It says, the Brentwood system of monetary management established the rules for commercial and financial relations among the United States, Canada, Western Europe, Australia, and Japan after the 1944 Brentwood Agreement. This was right after World War II, all right, to keep them at bay and at peace with each other. The Brentwood system was the first example of a fully negotiated monetary order intended to govern monetary relations among independent states. See, independent states. So this was a system that was set up to govern all these sovereign states, man, that was dealing with their own currencies and everything like that. So they had to have a way to be able to exchange their currency for another, or have it backed by something, or deal like Russia. How could they deal with Iran when their currencies was at different value? So they had to base it upon a set currency, which is a commodity, which is actual gold. All right, and later on they chose the dollar. Now it says the chief features of the Brentwood system were an obligation for each country to adopt a monetary policy that maintained its external exchange rates. See, it maintained its external exchange rates to be able to exchange it for a different currency or a commodity or all right, it says exchange rates within 1% by tying its currency to gold. See, everybody had to tie their currency to gold. Starting with the Brentwood Agreement in 1944. And the ability of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which is set up by Britain, all right, to bridge temporary imbalances of payments. Also, there was a need to address the lack of cooperation among other countries and to prevent competitive devaluation of the currencies as well. Right. Let's get straight to the point right here. It says on August 15th, 1971, the United States unilaterally terminated convertibility of the U.S. dollar to gold. The dollar had became the new gold standard, the new standard. They tricked everybody into falling for that witchcraft, falling for the dollar. All right. Effectively bridging the Bretton Woods system to an end, or bringing, Slacker. So they brought it finally to an end in 1971, effectively bringing the Bretton Woods system to an end and rendering the dollar as a fiat currency. So you had the floating currency for international exchange, right, as a set standard. Created the situation in which the U.S. dollar became a reserve currency. So people had to put it on reserve, meaning it's not backed by anything. But they just put it on reserve because they can still use it in the world. They can still buy and sell with it. But now they're going to dump all their reserve currencies, right? Because they don't need it. It's just sitting there as a waste and actually becoming a cancer to them. It's getting dust and rot, you know, like the scriptures say. It said this action referred to the Nixon shock. That's when Nixon did it. All right, Nixon was the one that stole the gold from these countries and set up the oil as the new standard, back in the dollar. All right. Now, this action, referred to as the Nixon shock, created the situation in which the US dollar became a reserve currency used by many countries. At the same time, many fixed currencies, such as the pound sterling, also became floating currencies. All right, so they all got pushed to the side. Now, I'm going to get this real quick. It says, the Nixon shock was a series of economic measures taken by United States President Richard Nixon in 1971, the most significant of which was the unilateral cancellation of the direct international convertibility of United States dollar to the gold. That's what he did. Played his part in the prophecies. While Nixon's actions did not formally abolish the existing Brentwood system of international financial exchange, the suspension of one of its key components effectively rendered the Bretton Woods system inoperative. So it meant it couldn't operate anymore. While Nixon publicly stated his intention to resume direct convertibility of the dollar after reforms to the Bretton Woods system had been implemented. So he was lying. He said once it gets situated, then we'll revert back. He lied. They never did. They never paid him their gold, even to this day. All attempts at reform proved unsuccessful. By 1973, the Brentwood system was replaced de facto, right? Meaning operating in fact, because they all agree on it. That's just it. Because America said it is, that's why it existed. Meaning it's operating, but not in fact. All right, de facto, the opposite of truth. By the current regime based on free-flowing currency. All right, this is a brief history of the OPEC, petroleum exporting countries. All right, is a permanent intergovernmental organization created at the Baghdad Conference on September 10th to the 14th, 1960. So that's when OPEC was created. Their alliance by Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. The 5 founding members were later joined by 10 other members, meaning other foreign countries. They all agreed to trade in oil on whatever standard is set in place, and that standard was set in place as the dollar. All right, and it was really pushed by the king Faisal of Saudi Arabia, under the control of America. America set up Saudi Arabia and Israel, the land of Israel today, the Jesuits. He set them up in the 1930s. They set up Saudi Arabia in 1932, and you had 1948 is when they established and gave the Jesuits, the land that are over in the land of Israel, the fake Jews, gave them their sovereignty. All right, as a battalion that's set in place against Russia and Iran, and China. That's an allegiance that's set in place. But now, all these oil producing countries have agreed to go to the dollar. But now all these countries are pulling away from the dollar, saying they're dumping the dollar. They're not going to do any trade or deals in the dollar. See that? That's what Russia's saying now. Now it's going to make more sense now. So that's when it was created. Now it says 1970s. OPEC rose to the international prominence during this decade as its member countries took control of their domestic petroleum industries and acquired a major say in the pricing of crude oil on world markets. On 2 occasions, oil prices rose steeply in the volatile market triggered by the Arab oil embargo. So that was idiots. ISUPK talk about a fucking embargo. Nah, the RFID chip is the mark of the beast, you know? In 1973, right? So they was set up, triggered by the Arab oil embargo, which was set up by who? All the Arab states under Saudi Arabia. All right. So 1973, then 1974, or 1975, that's when all the nations agreed to dive in and basically submit to the dollar. All right. It says triggered by the Arab Saudi Arabia oil embargo in 1973. That's when it happened. All right. First, you had 1971. They took away the gold standard, the Bretton Woods system. 1973, they established the Arab oil embargo, which is basically the OPEC deal with the dollar. And Saudi Arabia said, all right, any nations want to do deals with us in oil, buying or selling, then they're going to have to use the dollar. They're going to use your dollar, America. As long as America promises to protect our oil fields, we'll use your security, because America is a military machine set up by NATO and the European Union. You see that? So people started buying them as security, just like you buy a security guard, a bodyguard. Now, they said if you protect our oil fields, that's when you had that whole situation with Baghdad where they were burning the oil fields. See, they was trying to put pressure on Saudi Arabia back in the 90s. Now, they said they're going to protect them, but instead they burned them. All right, so in 1975, all these other nations, Venezuela, Iraq, whatever other nations, they all joined in and said, we agree to deal in the dollar as well. So no nation come to us dealing with oil, they're going to have to deal with the dollar, period. And that's what set the dollar as the world currency. Now that's done away with. All those nations are dumping the dollar. You see that? So the dollar is done. It's over. You know, America has no currency to back it, no oil, no gold. Only thing they have is their magic tricks, which would be like the RFID chip, or war, you know, or their guns, go to war with everybody. And that's why you're seeing the wars break out. All right. Now, it says, triggered by the Arab oil embargo in 1973 and the outbreak of the Iranian Revolution in 1979, OPEC broadened its mandate with the first summit of heads of state and government in Algiers in 1975, which addressed the plight of the poorer nations and called for a new era, new world order of cooperation and international relations in the interest of world economic development and stability. This led to the establishment of the OPEC Fund, for international development in 1976. Member countries embarked on ambitious socio-economic development schemes. Membership grew to 13 by 1975. So they all agreed, man. All right, so now you have this. Time has come for Russia to finally ditch the U.S. dollar. And they put sanctions on Iran. America put sanctions on Turkey and China. So now the sanction that America put on Iran is saying, hey, you can't use America's dollar. So Iran like, all right, fuck it, I'm gonna have to dump all my reserve currencies then. You're forcing us not to be able to deal with your banks. You're forcing us to not be able to deal with your currency. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna find alternatives. And they finding those alternatives through Russia, through China, through Turkey, through European Union. All right, and they're all working together with each other, keeping each other balanced through these sanctions. And it basically testing their strength. And the scriptures say, let the weak say I am strong, man. All right. So I'm going to read this last part. It says, we are considering an option of payment in national currencies with them. This requires certain adjustments in the financial, economic, and banking sectors to accomplish. Last week, the Kremlin said it is interested in trading with Ankara using the Russian ruble, not the dollar, and the Turkish lira. India has also vowed to pay for Iranian oil and rupees. The world's second largest economy, China, has also been taking steps to challenge the greenback, the dollar, dominance with the launch of an oil futures contract backed by Chinese currency, the petro yuan. China and Iran have already agreed to stop using the dollar in global trade. So it's over for the dollar, man. All right, Isaiah 13, one more time. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. All right, and that silver represents their money, whatever form of monetary currency, which is the dollar, and also gold, which is oil. So they're not going to regard oil from America or anything. It's going to want their ass. 5 pounds of flesh. They're going to dog them out, man. You know, say what? Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they will have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, the witchcraft, the witches, man. Illuminati, that's their beauty. Right? This is my beauty right here, right? Ain't how they talk? Especially excellency, right? Shall be as when Yahweh overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. It's talking about America. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, right? No more businesses coming to America. Neither shall the shepherds make their fold there, man. All right. I'm going to skip down. And the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate holes, and dragons in their pleasant places. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged.